I think that the one thing that people do not understand is energy does not just show up, you create it. It's actually under your control, your energy level. And I think again, just taking that and hearing it and just understanding the responsibility, sometimes it's heavy. It just comes back to an object in motion stays at motion and an object at rest stays at rest.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
I'm Rachel.
Hi, Rachel. How are you today?
Oh my God. So good. So good. So great. How are you?
You know, I'm hanging in there. It's a full moon, so when we're recording this, so I'm pretty sure that has a good effect on me. Maybe
I'm
it
not sure
affects
how I
some
feel
more
about
than
those
others.
kind of things. I don't know.
I just know it because I feel weird things in the atmosphere, and then I start to go like, what's going on right now? Like there's too many things, not just like in one aspect. Then I start to go like, okay, this makes sense because I just have like weird vibes.
I mean, as a former teacher, I think, and anybody who works with the public, I think, they can feel it. But I also think like people just be cray.
Well, yeah. But
You know what I'm saying?
there's an escalation in the cray.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's just a Tuesday. You know what I'm saying, girl?
I do.
I'm so excited about this podcast. I know it's been a lot to get to this point today.
Yeah.
We've taken the long road. Sometimes you got to. But this
podcast
is actually about brain function and cognition like late in the day and like feeling like you have nothing left to give. And that's not us, Kelsey. That is
as you went to like nothing left to give. I was like, wow, you really felt that in your soul.
I said that a little too longingly. But I did want to just say last week on the pod, we talked about your weird habit of stimming on the same song, like listening to the same song over and over and over in a row. Mm-hmm. And I called you disgusting. I stand by that. I just want to get that out there. But also, I want to apologize to all my best friends who also said they do that, and I inadvertently called them disgusting.
Wait, were there other people who said they do that?
So many people.
Really?
So many people in my DMs, so many people in the app, so many people. Everyone being like, yeah, like I totally feel that, Kelsey. I totally will just get stuck on a song and just go on a long drive and just listen to it on repeat, which I'm frightened by all of you. I guess I was disgusted and now I'm frightened. Like, are you guys all serial killers? Like, what's happening? Why are you guys doing this? Very strange thing. But then you said like, oh, what? You don't have any weird habits? And I do.
Yeah, you do. For sure.
I thought of one that I was like, wow. And you know how yours, like a whole bunch of people came out and they were like, yeah, I totally relate to that. Mine's going to be like crickets. Everyone's going to be like, what?
You know when you bring something up in a room and you go like, hey guys, you know when you do this, blah, 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 and you like go into this thing and then everyone just like kind of just like looks at you and you're like, yeah, right? And I don't do that either.
I mean, who would do that? I was just saying like, imagine if someone did, like they would be. So we're going to do a segment called Weird Habits, and we're going to divulge. You can say this is disgusting, or you can say any version of that you want. But here's what I do. This is a weird thing. When I have a problem that I'm solving, or when I have something that I'm thinking about, or like that I'm stuck on, if I have an empty house, sometimes if I don't have an empty house, I'll just go to a room by myself and I'll talk about it. Shut up. You shut up. Haven't finished. God. I'll talk about it with myself as if I'm like on a confessional in a reality show. Like as if there was a camera and I'm talking about the situation like from my vantage point, and I'm like, here's what happened. This is the way it went down. Like But here's the strangest thing.
I love that it's
This
on a talk show though. Like you are like, I'm like, say how you said it, like that someone will be like, and then what happened, Rachel?
no,
You're
really,
like,
it's like I'm on Maury or something. I'm picturing it like I need to tell this to an audience of people who haven't heard this story. And the weirdest thing I think about it is that I can't do this like in my head. Like, you know how you have your shower fights with people and most people like have them in their own mind. They're
internally. Yeah.
internal. I have to actually speak the words out loud. I don't know why. I
So
can't.
picture this, guys. Rachel's in a room by herself, probably, and she's like, "I'm glad you asked." So what happened was, and can you believe it?
No,
Like, is
but
there a
really.
crowd reacting to the things that you're saying, or is it just like you're in the confessional and no
No,
one's
there's no
reacting?
crowd. Yeah, no, I guess I shouldn't have described it like being on like Jerry Springer or Maury because there's no one like clapping in the background. In my mind, I'm like, there's like a camera and it's like a reality show. Like I'm like in a confessional and I just have a producer and he's asking me and feeding me things like to get me to tell this story. And I'm like going through it. And this is how I work out problems
Absolutely no one, Rachel.
loud.
I'm glad you asked. So here's
Guys,
what
flood
happened.
my inbox. Flood my inbox. Get in the app. Tag me everywhere. Tell me you guys do this. And
Mhm.
you have to also do it out loud. You can't be like just running through this in your mind because I don't know why, but every time I try to do that, it feels so unsatisfying. And I literally start over so I can say it out loud.
I start over because everyone who was listening out loud didn't get the beginning of this.
They didn't get the story. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
You missed the beginning. So I'll just start over. So here's how it went down. And listen,
I actually,
best
instead of
friends, you
calling you
know it now.
disgusting, I'm going to say I actually feel that I feel that's pretty healthy. I feel like actually the fact that you say it out loud, I initially thought was really weird because I'm just like picturing you being like, and then what happened? And in like a room by yourself and me being
Yeah, I
like,
do it.
what the
Hmm.
hell is she touched? Like she's just up there like saying things by herself. And that's really weird. But actually, I think that's really healthy because I think a lot of us get stuck in conversations in our head and we're not practicing saying them out loud. And you're just practicing it all the time. I mean, no wonder why we can't get you to keep your opinions to yourself
No
because
wonder.
you
See,
because
it's a
you are so
toxic
practiced in
trait.
saying it out loud. But no. I think it's actually really healthy because I think there are a lot. I am an internal arguer through and through. I actually have so many internal discussions that I'm not sure what ones happened out loud. And I sometimes think that I had conversations that didn't actually end up happening. They just
I'm here for
all
that.
they all happened internally and I just like will go through them and then I'm like I never said that out loud, but on the downside of that is like I'll be in conversations with people and be like thinking about things that I need to say and they don't come out my mouth. Like I can't force them out. But you are very practiced in that because you're just
Well,
saying them
guess
all the
what?
time.
I never have to question if I said it out loud. I just have to question if anyone else was in the room besides me and my producer that I made up in my mind.
Oh no.
Listen,
I
I just
really
told my
like
best
that.
friends. It's not a big deal. No one even cares. Everyone's still gonna just be okay with me, right, guys?
Oh
Right?
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
okay. I'm all right. If you
I
do
want to
this,
hear your weird stuff. I
or
want to
if you
even
have
if it's
another
not.
weird habit, yeah, make me feel better with something weirder.
Yeah, because
Mm.
I do listen to the same song repeatedly, but I also have so I've done this since I was little, watching the same movie repeatedly.
I can vouch for
And
this.
not only do I watch it like repeatedly, like people have one where they like watch on bad days. I do have that. But I was watching, or I do watch the same, I'll go through probably maybe a year of watching the same movie every single night, but only the first 10 minutes of it. So it's not even like I start the next day picking up like at the 10-minute mark. Like, no, it starts from the beginning I hear the same sounds over and over. And, why kill you now, Prince of Troy, with no one here to see you fall?
Okay,
Like
I was
it's
gonna talk about if we were gonna talk about that it was a Brad Pitt movie for a while, because I found this habit of yours, because you used to do this when we were little kids and we
disturbing.
shared a room, and I found it strange because the movies that you chose were very violent in some cases. Like some cases they weren't. No, I think they all were. Die Hard, like Troy, like movies that are like there was like a lot of bloodshed and like fight scenes, and I'm like, you want to watch this right before you go to bed? Are you sure?
Yeah, they were definitely not soothing for the normal for the average person. They weren't like a lullaby
No,
movie.
like it wasn't even like rom-coms. It was
Mm-mm.
like slashing
Mm.
movies.
Mhm.
So, you know.
Yeah, they're all usually action movies. Troy was a long runner, and that's definitely not something that you just kind of like fall asleep to. But it was worked for me. It
I
was
mean,
very soothing for me. The voices, the whole thing.
listen, you gotta do you, and one thing that
Repetitive things put me at ease.
did you talk to the ADHD specialist about that?
Yes,
Did she
yes.
say that that is
We talked a lot about nutrition. So if you guys haven't heard that episode yet, it is a great one. But I think that that was it was a really fun episode for me to do because, I think that over the last year, probably 2 years, since the pandemic, there's been a lot of um, neurodivergent behaviors that have been talked about and normalized, and new creators and people who are just, living with different things that have come out and really just like created a good platform for people to just talk about, and for like, the rest of us to go like, oh, that's an abnormal thing, but look at these other people who are doing that, and then really share some of the um, kind of tricks that we have learned over the years, or that we have, a lot of the times either you learn it through yourself or you hear something from another person and you say like, oh, I'm gonna try that, and then it's like life changing, because it just is one of those things that you're like, wow, I wouldn't have thought to, take off my shoes and do this thing, or I wouldn't have thought to, even just being okay with some of the things that some of the patterns of behavior that you do, and not focusing so hard on not doing them, allows you to live your life a little bit more freely. I know for me, like, it's a weird thing, but it's a gym thing. People I work out with, they, um, make fun of they say I wear holes in the floor because I do a lot of pacing, either between sets, around, like I'm walking, I'm like constantly walking. It's not a slow walk, it's not a slow pace. It's like I'm going somewhere, but I'm not going somewhere, because it's actually harder for me to sit down. It takes more effort and control to sit down between than it is to continue my movement. So like I realized that it was taking so much effort to be so still, that I was like, I'm freaking exhausted from trying to be so still all the time. It's one of those things where you would think like, it takes effort to be still, but no, it really does. And then just owning that is an interesting time, and I'm excited for that.
that is I know you didn't plan this, and I know that that was just thoughts with Kelsey on a Friday
Yeah.
afternoon. But that statement of like it's exhausting to be still is literally the podcast today. It's so, I think, taken for granted how much movement begets movement, and how important it is to stay moving if you don't want to be tired. Or it's really funny thing, and we did a lot of research on this, leading up to, like, the response in the brain and like all this kind of stuff, and like it's so scientifically backed. But just like you said, like, just from being alive, you
Mhm.
have kind of come to the realization that like things that other people consider to be quote unquote more normal, like resting between your sets, like in a seated position, is actually not going to work for you. And I just think that it's like really freeing when you get to a place in your life where you're like, you know what? I just do me. I just talk in my confessional in my house
You
by
just
myself, and I
you
just
just talk
watch
in
the
your
same 10
confessional.
minutes of a movie. And this is, you know what? This is what works for me. And also being open to, you know, this is what's not working for me, and maybe this is something I want to add. So, we wanted to talk today a little bit about movement with regards to productivity and, the links between your brain functioning and actual physical movement. I started doing research on this because actually my son is going to kindergarten this year, and I am a former teacher, and I am obviously very invested in his learning and his well-being. And my son is experiencing what I consider to be significant delays in his fine motor skills in the area of writing. So, like, he's a 5-year-old boy. He does not want to sit down at a table for any given amount of time to work on letters or writing or coloring or anything in that realm that requires that fine motor. And of course, like any mom, I'm looking at other kids his age or even younger and their abilities and going like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, there's a 4-year-old girl next to him writing out her full first and last name and her address. And like, we're still working on, can you sit down and write an R? So one of the things that we were working in with Rory was some workouts to for things he wanted to earn. He can't make money, so he wants all these toys. So one of the things we did was we put down little tiny workouts on these little cards, and X amount of workouts gets you a toy. So like, you want this toy that costs 5 workouts, you want this toy that costs 10 workouts, just a way to kind of like understand earning and whatever. I don't know if that's a good idea. All the child psychologists are like, that's a terrible. I don't know that he likes it and it works for him.
Mhm.
So during one of his workouts, which,
So that's the thing though. You like it, it works for you. Then
oh
put it in.
shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. So during one of his workouts, they're all very short. One of them was like run back and forth 10 times or something. And during one of his workouts, he was tracking his laps, his back and forth 10 times with chalk. And on his like third lap, he was like, oh, I won't know this is mine unless I write my name next to it. And I was like, okay, he's like out of breath. He's like, whatever. He starts to write his name. It's the best he's ever written his name, like in his life. I've never seen such like clear writing, such a steady hand, such like he was so devoted to this name and it looked so amazing. And I've never seen him so confident in his writing. And I was like, how do you just do that 5 laps in? Like, he's like that's just so weird. And so I started doing research on it, and it's actually a tactic that is used in many cases with different kind of neurodivergent behaviors, for improved cognition and brain function and ability to concentrate on a task, is physical movement. So now we started this thing where like every time we're going to write something, like you run a lap before or you jump on the trampoline 10 times or whatever. And I can't even tell you the improvement that we've seen in him. It's like off the charts, and my mind is blown by this. And I was like, we have to do a podcast on this.
Yeah, I mean, because that it's weird because some of the things that we either learn or implement with children, we just tend to drop as adults, which doesn't make any sense because we've just gotten bigger and and maybe some of our needs have changed, but like ultimately what helps cognitive function and what we're looking for out of some of these things when we're developing behaviors, why wouldn't we continue them as adults? And I think that movement is one of the ones that I think a lot of people struggle with as an adult is that we kind of redefine movement as, something that we have to do, and then it turns into aesthetics and not performance. And we never do that with children, right? Like, no part of their movement is for aesthetics. It's all just for, body movement, and in this example, improving some fine motor skills, which
One
can
more rep,
feel,
Rory. We need 6-pack of abs. I
yeah,
mean, imagine,
like,
like,
imagine that,
imagine.
like that's it's kind of bizarre, but if we continue that, the original thought process, and move into, like, as adults, how can we increase, some of our energy during the day, and we go to these things that we would never go to with children, right? Like, we go to, like, caffeine after caffeine after caffeine, or like having, like a Red Bull or whatever. Like, we go to some different things, but we never actually go towards some movement or taking care of the rest of our body, only blaming our body for, the lack of energy that it's presenting in that moment.
It's so true. In when I thought about it, I was like thinking about how could this be? How could he be so much improved when he like seems physically more exhausted? And I was thinking about like when I was teaching and I had very I was very much under the understanding that each student was an individual that needed different tactics from me as a teacher in order to achieve their best work. And I had this kid who was so disappointed in himself and the way he was performing on when we would have like a big test day. So it'd be like you'd have to most of my class was a lot of getting up and a lot of moving and a lot of obviously but there was times where we had to assess, and like a good like 45 minutes was spent like sitting and writing an essay or sitting on an assessment. And that's a skill that we needed them to develop, but at the same time it's a skill that is difficult for some kids to do their best work. And I remember that the thought of having him, I said to him one day, like, he was so disappointed in how he was, constantly, he knew the material, but he couldn't translate it. And I said, like, I talked to the gym teacher and I said, like, can he come down for like 10 minutes in the middle and just shoot some hoops with the gym class? Like, I really think that this would help him. Like, his next 5 tests were absolutely, I was like, I knew you knew this. Like, I knew all along that this is what you knew. But he was able to prove it and show it through academic work just from spending 10 minutes playing basketball in the middle of the test.
Yeah. Like, shout out to teachers who just, like, I just want to take a second. Teachers who allow, who notice things, even just about other humans. We can continue this on beyond teachers, but teachers who take a second to notice that about kids, and kind of adjust, even just in a small way, to be able to get the most out of people around you, and, like, out of students, out of children. And, like, I feel like that's like something that we're often missing, is like, can we adjust in some way to help someone, to get the most out of them, to really, like, allow him to show what he actually knows, because, like, it's in there, and, like, it doesn't show up on tests, and that's frustrating for everyone. Like, I remember that being extremely frustrating for me, because I'm like, well, ask me in a different setting, or ask me over here. Like, it's in there, I know it, but, like, I fell asleep during my MCAS.
It's
And,
true. She
like,
did.
I did, and and I was, like, really mad about it, but then I also was just, like, sitting, and I was zoning out, and it was so quiet, and it was, like, just not the thing for, like, but, like, there are some, some kids that's really, like, difficult for. And I think as, adult, like, as teachers, shout out to you teachers, because, like, you have so many kids, and just being able to, like, notice and pick up on things that work for kids, like, man, you are special humans. But even, for the rest of us, noticing things about ourselves, and being able to put some put some things in place, put some skills in place in our toolbox to be able to adjust and really just help ourselves is a really important skill. Because if you know how to help yourself to get the most out of your productivity, out of your day, out of, your life essentially, because that all adds up, then you just like you've reached a new level is what I think. And I think that a lot of people go to, I really want to work out. I really want to, make fitness a part of my life, make health a part of my life, but I don't have the energy left at the end of my day to go work out. And I don't have time in the morning, and I'm not a morning person, or like, there are very real things. But I think one of the number one things I want you to leave this with is you don't have to have energy going into your workout to show up. Like, it
It's
doesn't start
so
there.
it's one of those things that we really miscommunicate. The
Yeah.
fact that, in order to show up for a session, you need to be getting there with a bunch of energy instead of what it actually is, which is if you want some energy, show up for your session,
Mhm.
right? Because I think universally, one of the biggest complaints when you ask people, like, you gotta list your top complaints about your body. I think a lack of energy is going to show up on 9 out of 10 people's lists. I just don't have enough energy. I'm just running out of energy. And we are using so many outside sources to try to replace what we think is just not showing up for us, like our God-given right of energy. Like, why isn't it here? And we're just saying, like, well, I'll just supplement it. I'll have caffeine, I'll have energy
Pre-workout.
drinks, I'll have, yeah. But I think that the one thing that people do not understand is energy does not just show up, you create it.
Mm.
It's actually under your control, your energy level. And I think again, just taking that and hearing it and just understanding the responsibility. Sometimes it's heavy because it's easier to just like blame your body, like, why aren't you doing the thing that, what's that meme? Like, I gave you the kale and now you have
Yeah.
to do the thing. But really, it just comes back to an object in motion stays at motion and an object at rest stays at rest. And
And it's
when
so
you
hard when you're in that cycle though, right? Like if you're in a cycle of less movement and kind of like constant fatigue and a lack of energy on a daily basis, and you've gotten into that cycle, it's really hard to start to break it. But I think that it's a little bit more freeing to be in that cycle and know that you're not waiting on some burst of energy that's going to come from the stars, explode in your house, and you're going to be ready the next day to work out, or that moment. Like, that's not what you're waiting for. That's not what's going to happen, because the less you move, the more fatigued and tired everything makes you, right? Like everything that comes throughout your day, it's like having, that full cup and then being like, well, like you add a little bit more, like it's gonna spill over. Like it's gonna make you more tired. But when your energy capacity is just already down, and then you're just like, well, why isn't it showing up? It's like, okay, we're gonna know right now that it's not gonna show up. So a little movement, then a little more movement. We're gonna start to get the ball rolling, and then it's sending it down the hill, right?
Yeah, and you have to think about your energy like the same way you think about anything else that works in your body. It's a capacity, it's a train. You think of it like a muscle. If you think of energy like a muscle, you certainly wouldn't if you hadn't trained your energy levels or your energy capacity at all. And you have been sitting and fatigued and tired and sitting more and being more tired and fatigued because of that. You can't expect that you're going to wake up one day with giant, huge muscles that can deadlift 300 pounds. That wouldn't make any sense. You have to slowly work up the energy capacity just the same way as you're working up the weights in the gym. every single time you move the needle and you exercise, you move the needle to make your energy capacity just that little bit more. You work out, you recover, you have gained something there. You are going to be able to run farther. You're going to be able to lift more, and you're going to have more energy throughout your day because it's something that you're training just like all of your other body functions, you know?
Yeah, it's just one of those I have to do this. I have to I have to say the thing because sometimes when we talk about things in the gym and how we train them and how we how we are building up that energy capacity and how we're thinking about building stronger muscles, it just translates it into every other aspect of your life. Like it's the same thing. Like none of us are really innately born with all of these abilities. It's that we practice some abilities and we don't practice others. And I say the same thing for things that I'm not good at. So I don't want you to say like, "Oh, Kelsey, well, energy just came easy to you." Like I practice relaxing because I think that that is something that I'm not initially very good at, and I work to build that up a little bit more. I work to try and like find ways that are relaxing to me or that can, decrease my anxiety levels because like I'm someone who will do the like go, go, go. And then I'll have a panic attack and realize I've been too high. I've been riding on a too high for too long. And that's what causes that. So like then it's like, okay, well you have to bring it back down. And in the same, on the same pendulum, for those of us who are very inactive and are staying, in a more low energy state, we have to build it up a little bit so that we can start to, we have our times where we relax and we have our times where we have the ability to access energy that we're looking for throughout our day. And it's just so common that as we get older and as we get into like office jobs and as we, go into these things that are really designed to be more sedentary during the day, that we fall into those roles or we fall into that place where like you're mentally exhausted, so you must be physically exhausted, right? Those two things are very different. Sometimes you can be really mentally exhausted during the day and show up for a workout and be like, I don't know if I can do that. But really you find out that your body is ready for movement.
And probably that's why you're so mentally exhausted, is because, the amount of stress and the limited movement has really taken a toll. And it's a weird thing too with sleep, because a lot of people
Mm,
who report having super, super low energy during the day also report tons of sleep disturbances.
yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If you think about it, if you're so tired during the day, your head should hit the pillow and you should be out for 8 hours, no problem, right? Unless you are not so tired throughout the day, you are so sedentary with such low energy capacities. And studies have shown that when your capacity for energy is low, it causes sleep disruptions. So it's such a double whammy, because it's like now you don't sleep, which in turn makes working out and moving harder. And it's like just like a whole ass thing. But like when people find movement and find the ability to move despite having low energy levels and move up that capacity, they find that they sleep better at night. And that's like a double win. So, I mean, everything's weirdly linked.
Well, you also you supplement things too, like that, right? So like you're, not sleeping well, so you wake up a little bit fatigued. Well, you wake up a whole bunch fatigued, and then you start to increase your caffeine consumption because you're trying to make up for it. So then you're not counting on your body to make its energy naturally. You're adding in a bunch of things. Then you're adding in caffeine, which I've talked about later in the day, not a good thing. Then you're disrupting the sleep for that later that night. And then it becomes this like, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy of like lack of sleep, trying to make up for it, don't have any energy, now don't get any sleep, now definitely don't have any energy. It's definitely a self-fulfilling prophecy. But let's talk about some of the studies showing that movement is making you smarter.
I love that it's making you smarter. And I found this to be, well, after what I saw, with my students, this was not, and honestly, I learned that from you. I learned that from your school experience, that there was people that needed to move in order to increase brain function. And like, if you think about it, your brain is just an organ. That's all it is. It's just another organ. And when organs get more blood, they work better. All that's universally across the board. So like, if you're going to increase your blood flow and the oxygen to your brain, which is what movement is going to do, that's called hyperoxygenation. Oh, should have practiced this in my interview. Hyperoxygenation. The scientists know. Anyways, you're like rushing oxygen and blood to your brain and all of your organs through movement. And then it's rushing nutrients. So, like, all the stuff that your organs need to like do their thing is being rushed to them. And that's why people report like things like being more alert and being more energetic after exercise, because they've literally just increased the blood flow to all of their major organs and they're working better. In that, you're smarter when your brain's working better. You're gonna be smarter.
Yeah, I mean that's that's improving memory, how quick that you respond to things. I mean, everyone does know this too who has experienced anything like that, where they're like, "Oh, okay, increase oxygen to the brain. Oh, okay, that's going to make it perform better. Increase blood flow. Oh, it's going to make it perform better. Oh, I feel sharper." That is when it's performing better, you're obviously feeling sharper and you're improving your memory. It's a whole thing.
I found it really interesting, all the things they had linked exercise to warding off like dementia and Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
because of that area of your brain that is responsible for memories. It, as you get older, everything just kind of slows down a little bit. And it actually, the studies are suggesting that exercise promotes regrowth in that
Mm.
area. And so I mean, what
I
could
mean,
be
that's why it's so important.
better?
I've said this before, but like, we often make excuses, and I'm gonna call them for what they are, as we get older, as our parents get older, and like they're just they're not doing like movement anymore. They are X, Y, and Z, and saying whatever age that they're at. When like I am going, no, that's the opposite of what would be helpful in this instance. Like, as we get older and we talk about bone density and like health of your brain, like we're talking about a bunch of things that like can only be improved with continuous movement. So we don't go to, you get older, you move into a sedentary lifestyle, and like that is generally accepted, when what actually would be the most beneficial for not only living a longer, more fulfilling life, but a healthier life where we are warding off some of these things, is continuous movement. And that doesn't start only when you've reached fourth quarter. That starts in the rest of your life, because obviously we're developing all of those habits and health now. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up was just that being more productive during your day. And one of the studies that we will probably link in the show notes, just so if you want to see where we're getting some of our information is. But like, one of the studies done in the workplace exercise showed that on days when employees exercise, 72% improved their completed tasks by the end of the day. And I just like to like throw that throw that out there, because I know a lot of us do want to be more productive during the day, and that doesn't stop with just at work, but like the things that you want to get done in your house, or that you want to have a clearer mind to work through problems in your life. And we all would like a clearer mind to do some of those things. And sometimes when you are having an increased amount of stress during your life or at work, you think like, I can't add one more thing, which would be movement. And I want to just kind of work around that one more thing being movement as another thing on your plate, or as like maybe like the fork, like it's only going to help the things that you have on your plate that need more problem solving, to make you a little bit sharper and more able to deal with the rest of the things that are on your plate.
It's so true that, some of the the worst decisions I make are when I'm hungry or when I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
I often have now in my adult life come to start asking myself, before you make this rash decision, are you hungry? Are you tired? And are you on your period? Those are three very important things that I need to weigh into this decision,
True.
because honestly, brain fog and like the way people describe it is like so accurate because literally the synapses between your neurons in your brain are not even firing, that they're not firing at their best ability, so it literally is foggy in there. It's like hard for the brain to communicate with itself, and that's what makes you kind of slow and lethargic and like feel like you're not completing anything you start, you can't concentrate. And when we go to, that being that 2 o'clock kind of, okay, I
Yeah.
need a coffee, rather than I need 50 air squats.
Mhm.
Again, that's a slippery slope because a 2 o'clock coffee is going to disrupt your sleep patterns. And like this whole idea that we can do it only through outside forces is, I think, one that I really want everyone to challenge with this podcast. And then instead, thinking about internally what is not working in order for your brain to be that foggy, and how you can increase the blood flow and nutrients to that area to clear things up. And exercise across the board has been shown to do that. And it doesn't need to be strenuous. Like, you don't need to stop your office job and like grab some dumbbells and do, 55 thrusters and some pull-ups and be like sweating through your suit and stuff. I mean, I'm talking about like going for a brisk walk down to the bathroom and back, throwing in a couple air squats, just getting up out of the chair and doing something with a purpose is going to help. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to go on a 3-mile run.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be this like wild thing. I mean, we've talked about, your workouts don't even need to be this like big, overwhelming thing. You just need to get some movement in. But something that I want to like say for some people during the day is like, I do this very often, and it
Four
is,
o'clock.
yeah, it's 4 o'clock. Yeah, I have a beanbag near my near my chair that I often switch to. You can find me in different places in the building sometimes. It's like it's definitely not a very common thing, but I will say that some of those like very uncommon things produce a lot of uncommon results. Let's go with that, because I'm extremely productive. I get a lot of things done.
Yeah, girl.
And some of the things that I notice that I'm like, wow, this is really odd. But I found really work for me. And you can find some different things that work for you, but I would really encourage, like, I have a standing desk. Several people in the office have a standing desk, because sometimes, and you don't have to stand the entire time, but sometimes just getting up and being able to have like a different perspective when you've been sitting for so long, and just like, sitting itself, like we shouldn't be doing it that much time, but just being able to stand for maybe like 10 minutes and go back, it really makes a really big difference. And even just getting up and being like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk for a second, come back a little bit clearer, take your time away from it, maybe get up and do some 10 air squats. We have Busy Bitch Fitness on our Instagram, which was designed exactly for that, for people to just get in some type of small movement during the day, and that it's not a disruption. It's really going to help instead of staring at the screen.
It's really not a disruption. And when you think of it as a necessity to productivity, like instead of walking over and making a coffee at 2 o'clock, spending your time, like literally go to our Instagram, go to Busy Bitch Fitness ideas, tips, and get stuff that you can do in an office setting, like in any kind of a workplace setting, that will just be something to increase that blood flow and to give you that little bit of a push that you might need. That caffeine is going to it's just going to make things a little bit more complicated, and it's not, increasing your energy capacity. You're not getting better energy tomorrow from taking a hit of caffeine, but you are from doing 50 air squats. We're looking to increase capacity in all areas of our life so we can maximize it, right? And when you think of energy and brain function as not something that you have to wake up and hope for, I hope today I'll have some energy.
Yeah.
When it's something that's actually you think of it as something that's under your control, and you say, like, I don't have to hope for energy today because I know that I'm going to do the movement necessary to create an energy capacity that fits the life that I want to live. Man, that's empowering. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
empowering
And
stuff.
the thing is like it doesn't even necessarily have to be something like air squats or whatever. Like get up and stretch a little bit. We're getting blood flow. That's what we're looking for is like get up, get your like arms above your head, like start to stretch a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be this massive, adjustment, but I would encourage you if you to have a plan. I'm someone who loves a freaking plan. It's so bizarre, but like every time is that like if you're looking at your day and you're saying like I'm a desk worker, okay, my goal is 2 times during the day that I'm going to get up and get some movement in, whether that's like get up and stretch for 5 minutes, or I'm going to get up and do some like little air squats, whatever it is that you have a goal for like 2 times during the day that you're just going to put that in 3 to 5 minutes. That's it.
I think that well, if you worked at CVG, it wouldn't be weird at all. It's just we
I
have
know.
people planking in sports bras all day long to help, and
We look
I will put our productivity up against any company worldwide because
It's
I
so
feel
funny.
like
I have to tell you guys this. It's so funny. One time, like this happens often that we're looking at patterns in an air squat. So much so that like when Jess started at CVG, she like came over. Mark and I are sitting out. We have an open office here, and we're like sitting in an air squat. We're just talking. We're just like thinking about something. We had a little bit of a
I
problem.
think best in an air squat.
And we didn't even think it was any type of weird. We're just sitting in an air squat. Jess comes over and she goes, I'm just joining the meeting, and enters an air squat.
If you want to join the meeting, you must perform an air squat. You can stay in it if you think better. But I mean, listen, obviously, fitness companies, it's going to be a little bit more commonplace to see things like, people sitting on an exercise ball or people having standing desks or people having meetings in air squats.
Where did we have
But
a meeting yesterday, Rachel?
oh,
I was on a bike in the meeting.
this is the kind of stuff. Kelsey announced she was going to sit on the airdyne during a meeting, and she announced that she felt that bikes were the best thing to happen to meetings.
Yes. It's true. But I have a lot to contribute. I just got to keep it moving.
I just gotta be pedaling. My brain works better when I'm pedaling. And the fact is that you're right. Your brain does work better when you're pedaling, and so does yours, guys. So, fight the tired with movement, fight the energy depletion with movement, because every single study of the human body shows that is the way. And I know that sometimes it can be a little bit weird in, office cultures that aren't necessarily a fitness company or something like that. But I just want to say,
Lunchtime walk.
first of all, who gives a shit? And
Mm.
everybody's like, what the hell? And secondly, my experience has always been that somebody is going to join you because they've been waiting to have a meeting in an air squat too. And they're just so glad that they now can and have a partner in crime to do it. So find your people, do your movement, and increase your energy capacity through your own body. And I think that you're going to find that your productivity just skyrockets.
100%. Have a great week, guys. We love you.